And
How to make spring rolls on Lunch Break Live. Take it away, Brittany Drake.
Hi, everyone. So I'm here today. I'm going to make some tofu spring rolls. This is a recipe that, seems like it might take a lot of work, but it's actually super easy. It's basically like making a salad in a wrap. So the first thing that you're going to do is, which I've already done, is kind of prep your carrots and your cucumbers and your cilantro. It's about a cup of julienne cucumbers and carrots, and then your cilantro, however you like it. I like it just the leaves, but some people like it like the whole stuff. And then from there, we are going to rehydrate our rice noodles. I just bought these at Costco, like in a bulk thing, but you can buy them really at any store. And they're just like dried rice vermicelli noodles. And all you have to do is boil it. You boil some water, you pour them over the noodles, you let them sit in the bowl for 5 minutes, and you strain the water. It's called parboiling. It's super easy. You're not even actually boiling the noodles. All you have to do is rehydrate them. And then from there, I already pressed my tofu. I already pressed it. And I really like my tofu marinated a little bit before I saute it, because it gives it a little bit more flavor. So from there, we're going to take a couple tablespoons of rice vinegar, or if you have it, apple cider vinegar, and you just pour it into a bowl. And then we're going to add olive oil, just like a tablespoon, a dash of soy sauce, or I usually use tamari or liquid aminos, because I usually have liquid aminos on hand. And then I do a dash of sriracha. Super easy marinade. It's just oil, vinegar, and then additional flavors if you want. You can add spices if you want. And then you just take your tofu, you put it in your marinade bowl, and then you're kind of just gonna swirl it around, or if you have a little spatula, kind of toss it in your marinade. And we're gonna let that sit for just a couple of minutes. It doesn't need to marinate for very long.
Well, I know that there's somebody here who has a lot of questions to ask you, and that is Sarah Segal. And she is an amazing vegan poet and entrepreneur. So take it away, Sarah Segal. Oh, we're not hearing you. Unmute yourself, my dear. Unmute yourself. All right, keep going. All right, there we go. All righty.
Hey, everyone. Happy Friday. Really happy to be here. I'm really lucky to be on with Brittany. And Brittany is an amazing activist, and she just did some amazing rescues over at a local slaughterhouse, and she's been working really hard organizing and helping to save lots of animals. So what's been going on with you, Brittany?
Okay, thanks, Sarah. So yeah, last month we had a huge action. While we still remained, safe because of COVID, we got almost 200 people to come out to a Los Angeles slaughterhouse and hold vigil for 2 whole days. And we were able to shut down that slaughterhouse for about 6 hours, which is pretty amazing. We got inside footage, which no one has really ever done at this particular slaughterhouse. They have this reputation of being like a fortress, like impenetrable. I've talked to undercover investigators, and they said that they were told not to even bother trying to apply because it's just so hard. They vet their employees really well to try to weed out undercover investigators. So, in the span of 3 days, we were able to get inside footage. we were able to get inside, to lock down, and to shut down the slaughterhouse for over 6 hours.
And I know you're also working to prevent any new slaughterhouses from being built here in California. We're in the middle of a pandemic, which is a zoonotic illness, which jumped from animals to humans, first cropped up amongst people who were at a slaughterhouse, a retail wet market slaughterhouse in China. And SARS was the same thing. You had mad cow disease, swine flu, avian flu. So what's your argument there? And why do you feel like we should put a moratorium on all slaughterhouses and factory farms in California?
Yeah, well, especially with this pandemic, like you said, it's made it abundantly clear that, you know, eating animals is killing us. It's hurting our country. It's hurting our economy. It's hurting our lives and our families. Right now, we're stuck in our homes, and this can all be traced back to eating animals. And you know, in 2020, it's time to move ahead. If we keep going back, you know, and reverting back to our old ways, once this pandemic, like once we have a handle on it, we're just going to be prepping for the next pandemic. So the only thing to do is to issue a moratorium on any new slaughterhouses and factory farms. I mean, that's step one, is just no new construction on any new facilities like this. And then in the future, we can work towards phasing out the, you know, the ones that are in existence. Because, I mean, not only is it prepping us for pandemics, but it's also, you know, getting our workers sick. It's also hurting our environment. Over almost 50% of California's water, and we're in a drought, we don't have a whole lot of water, goes to animal agriculture in this state. And we grow a lot of produce for like most of the nation. And to be spending, you know, this water and our resources in this way is just unwise. So we actually have a website where people can go and sign a petition. It's called nonewfactoryfarms.com. You can sign the petition, and we're trying to urge Governor Newsom to issue a moratorium on any new slaughterhouses and factory farms in California. He already has issued several moratoriums, you know, this year alone. He just recently issued a mandate stating that in a few years, California is going to phase out all non-electric cars. So that's a big move. That's a bold move that a lot of people, you know, wouldn't think is typical for a politician to make. So the next, like the step of banning new slaughterhouses and factory farms in California is not that wild for Governor.
Let's get back to your cooking, because I know you've sauteed your
yes
tofu.
I sauteed some tofu.
Yeah.
You know, you just kind of, I mean, everyone knows tofu. You just throw it in the pan with a little bit of oil. After you're done marinating it, you flip it, you know, basically on all sides to get it seared a little bit. You don't need to cook it a ton because it's tofu. I literally took like 2 minutes to saute that tofu, maybe 5. So now our next step is to soak our rice wrappers, our rice roll wrappers, in some warm water. So I boiled some water a few minutes ago. I'm going to pour that into a bowl.
This we really want to see because it's very hard for a lot of people. I end up ripping the wrappers. I've had a lot of issues with this aspect of making spring rolls. So show us exactly how you do this.
Yeah, that's actually an issue that I thought I would have as well. And I came up with a solution.
Don't wrap your phone.
Yeah, I gotta move the phone away. So you take out the wrapper, it looks like this, and then you soak it in the water. You're just gonna kind of push it down for a couple seconds to get it wet. But the key for me is you don't want to wait until it gets completely translucent, until it's completely soft, because then it will rip and tear and it becomes like very hard to work with. So I take it out when it's like, it's a little al dente, you know, for anyone who cooks pasta, you know, just a little bit of a bite to it. And then we're going to take our rice noodles, and you're just going to take, you know, it's basically like now we're making a little burrito. So you're going to take your rice noodles. Oh, the other key is, because we're going to wrap this, everything you put down first is going to show on top when you're done wrapping it. So if you want to make it look pretty, you know, put down the stuff that you want to show on the top. I'm going to put down some cilantro first, and I'm going to put down 2 pieces of tofu. I'm going to put in some rice noodles.
I think you have to be careful not to put too much stuff. I think that's what I do. I start adding, and then I can't wrap it, and then sort of.
Yeah, that's an issue I have too. All of my burritos, burgers, they always come out ginormous because I put too much in there. But yeah, you just kind of put like a little tiny handful, like literally it's like 4 little spears of cucumber and, a little bit more of carrot, however much you like. And then we're going to, now you can see it's getting a little sticky, the rice paper. So now it's starting to get really nice. You folded it in. We're going to fold it like a little burrito. Fold the back side up. Fold the top side up.
Look at you.
And then you kind of just try to keep everything in place and keep it tight as you roll it. And now we've got ourselves a little pretty spring roll.
Look at that. And now, can you cut it, or should you just leave it like that?
You can cut it. I typically like to eat it just with my hands like this, and then we'll make the sauce in a minute. Actually, we'll make the sauce right now. So we're going to use, actually just bought some new peanut butter, so I have to take the top off.
We do have a question from Laura. She wants to know, did you cook the tofu first?
Yes, I cooked the tofu for about 5 minutes. You just saute it in a pan after you marinate it. And again, you only need to marinate it for about 5 minutes, and then you saute it for about 5 minutes. You just kind of flip it every few minutes so each side gets a nice little char. You also, the trick is, instead of cutting them into cubes, I cut them a little bit longer because they're going to go into this nice long spring roll. So you want it to kind of fit.
Good point.
So we're going to, I like using for the peanut butter sauce or the peanut sauce, I like using the natural peanut butter. Because the regular stuff that we grew up eating, the Jiffy and the Skip, are just so thick that you have to add a lot of water to it to like make it loose and creamy. But the creamy regular peanut butter is just real easy to work with. Now I'm going to add that to my bowl, a little bit more.
All right.
Then we're going to add.
Let's see the bowl.
Yes. Okay, we're going to add. So now we've got our little peanut bowl. We're going to add. I already juiced a couple of limes, like 1.5 limes. We're going to pour that in there. We're going to pour about a tablespoon of maple syrup. A little sweetness. And again, a couple dashes of a couple squirts of sriracha because I love sriracha. It gives a little bit of spice. We're going to add some soy sauce or liquid aminos or tamari if you have it. And we're going to add, I like a little bit of sesame oil because it just makes everything taste and smell really nutty. And now you kind of got a little bowl like that. We're just going to mix it up. And then I'm a big proponent of not really measuring and stuff. Once you make it once or twice, it's pretty easy to kind of eyeball it, and then you just taste as needed. So this is a little, the peanut butter's a little thick. So when that happens, we can add a little bit of hot water, and that will thin the peanut butter. I mean,
that looks good.
Or you can also cheat and buy peanut sauce from the store. But it's really easy to make, and most of us have all these ingredients on hand. You can also add, grate some ginger into this peanut sauce if you want. Yeah, so now we've got a nice creamy peanut sauce. It didn't take too long.
Wow.
That looks incredible.
And it's all raw. It's raw, right? This is
Yeah. Except for the tofu, everything is raw. And actually, these noodles, these rice noodles that I bought, I thought they were just the regular rice vermicelli, but turns out they're like mung bean noodles. So there's a ton of different noodles you can buy. They don't have to be the vermicelli kind. In this case, they're mung bean. Or you can buy like the thicker rice noodles, or you can use ramen noodles. Whatever noodles you have on hand to put in your ramen or to put in your spring rolls. I've definitely used different noodles, whatever noodles I had on hand. But yeah, so now we've got our spring roll, our pretty little, let me see if I can get this in camera. Yeah, a pretty little spring roll with our nice little cilantro. And then we're just gonna dip it in. And then a little peanut sauce, and then
Wow. I want that for lunch.
The camera on that one. I wish we could. It's soon. One day we're going to be able to eat. I'll be able to eat that through the screen. Yeah.
What are some people asking, Sarah?
So Ellen was asking what was going on with the 48-hour vigil. She wanted more information and what people can do. And the link I put in is called nomorefactoryfarms.com.
Yes, that's the link. You can also follow Direct Action Everywhere Los Angeles on Facebook. We're on Instagram at DXE Los Angeles. We're also on Twitter, although we're not very active because I run our Twitter account and I don't really use Twitter, but we have one. We actually also have a protest planned back at that same slaughterhouse next Friday, because next weekend is Halloween, All Hallows Eve. And the history behind All Hallows Eve is honoring our dead. And with how this year has gone, I can think of no better way to start celebrating and honoring our dead than going back to that slaughterhouse and honoring the pigs who have died, honoring the workers who have gotten sick, and a couple of them have died from COVID. And just standing up to this company again, and telling them we're not going away. We're going to try everything we possibly can to urge them to change. And if they don't, we're going to have to keep standing up for these victims who keep getting hurt by these companies. And I also urge people, there's so many groups, especially if you live in Los Angeles, there is Slaughter Free LA. They're also targeting these slaughterhouses by targeting the sports teams who sponsor them. So that's also a really cool way to run a campaign, is by finding any avenue we possibly can and fighting to make some change. And there's so many different ways to do it. You can also, obviously follow Jane, follow her page. She is basically on top of everything. Every day there's always a live stream that I watch that shows somewhere in the country or on the planet where people are fighting to bring justice to these animals, to our environment. And yeah, just keep finding, following Jane online, follow DXE online, and you can attend protests, share the live streams, share our videos, get informed, sign the petition at nomorefactoryfarms.com.
Why you? What was it about your life, your experience, that made you decide to devote so much time to animals?
Well, I grew up with an abusive parent. They weren't physically abusive, but mentally and verbally abusive. And when I used to try to reach out for help, like in high school, when I started realizing that this was wrong, growing up with it, you don't realize how wrong these things are because you have no sense of perspective. And right now, that's what our country is like. That's what our culture is like. We have no sense of perspective of what we're doing to these animals. And, when I reached out for help and I got laughed at when I was told that it didn't matter, it was very disheartening, and it made me feel like I was alone. And when I saw videos of what was happening in our food system, what was happening to animals, and realizing that they are not food, they're individuals. They're not objects. They bleed, they have families, they cry, and that very few people were speaking out for them. I knew that this was something I had to get behind, because we need to move the needle forward, and if we have activists who are dedicated to bringing this issue up again and again and finding new and innovative ways to put these issues on the table, we're going to move the needle, and we're going to get, we're going to see the change that we want to happen. We've seen that with other movements, when they have an influx of people rise up and start marching, start protesting, start, coming out to their friends and family and telling them, who they are and what their beliefs are and what they stand for, can really move the needle. You can see it change. Like, we've seen so much change in my generation alone, and right now we're seeing people try to regress our country backward. And
tell us about this photo. Tell us about this photo. Here you are holding a turkey. What was happening?
That was taken about 2 years ago. It was the day before Thanksgiving. I had gone to Utah with a bunch of activists with DXE, and we had actually, a farmer who runs a turkey farm in Utah reached out to us and offered to let us rescue 100 turkeys the day before Thanksgiving, because this farmer, he'd just taken over this business, and his company had actually been investigated by DXE activists, and there are, I think, currently still charges pending in Utah. But this farmer, really saw what we were about. He woke up. He's fighting to try to get the DA to drop the charges. And he let us rescue these 100 turkeys, and we were able to take them to freedom. And it was such a special moment. It was such a cold day, but by the time I picked up this beautiful girl, this beautiful turkey, she was so warm and calm in my arms. It was like she knew that she was leaving, such a horrible, hellish place and going somewhere that it would be able to be happy, safe, and free for the rest of her days. And there are so many sanctuaries that actually ended up with these 100 turkeys. There are sanctuaries in Utah. There's multiple sanctuaries all over California. There in Los Angeles, there's Kindred Spirit Sanctuary. It's located in the Valley. They've got turkeys from that rescue. Happy Hen Sanctuary in San Luis Obispo has turkeys from that rescue. And Charlie's Acres up in Sonoma County also has turkeys from that rescue. So I've been to, I think, 4 sanctuaries, actually 5 sanctuaries that have turkeys from that day that we rescued. And
also rescued, here are some chickens that were rescued, a very similar situation where a farmer, egg-laying hens, they call it depopulation. They just gas them all when they slow down a little bit in their egg production, and then bring in chicks to replace the dead bodies. And it upsets a lot of the farmers. They're in the business, but they're also trapped in a cruel system. And the farmer had called and said, come and get these chickens. And it was a very similar situation. They were rescued and they went to Happy Hen and other sanctuaries. So, a lot of the farmers are also, they're being factory farmed too. We're all being factory farmed. Those who eat the bad food and then get ill are also being factory farmed to make money for the pharmaceutical industry. So what's the solution, Brittany?
Well, I think where we start from is stop blaming individuals. I really believe in intersectionality and how all oppressions are interconnected. So we need to stop blaming the people who work in slaughterhouses, because believe me, there's no one has that job, killing chickens day in and day out, killing pigs day in and day out, being covered in blood, smelling death. No one chooses that job, or I'm assuming very few people would, by choice. These people are being, forced into this because they need to provide for themselves. So we need to stop blaming the individuals. And because when we stop doing that, we can forge relationships, like with that farmer in Utah, like with that chicken farmer on the East Coast, who let people come in, let people rescue them. We need to attack this from all angles. So whatever your talents lie, wherever you feel comfortable, getting active, you can. I mean, I started off my activism journey just watching videos online and sharing them to my friends and family. And then I started attending protests. And then I started speaking out. And then I started doing, investigations. And now, we're realizing we need to also try to target our politicians and ask for policies and laws. I mean, not even really ask for, demand them and work towards bringing, laws that will actually protect these animals. In California, there's actually a penal code, 597E, that makes it illegal to hold animals without food or water for over 12 hours. And activists who have gone into, several different factory farms and just in general, animal farms and CAFOs throughout the state have gone in with that penal code in hand and the owners of those farms that we're coming in because we have evidence that these animals are being held without access to food or water for over 12 hours. I was at a duck slaughterhouse a year ago and I was arrested because I went onto the property. We saw ducks they were being kept in such terrible conditions that they couldn't get up. They literally couldn't walk. It was a mental condition from how.
I have a question for you, Brittany. Okay, so the question is, why do so many people keep talking about grass-fed, and they keep saying that they eat grass-fed? I know that makes them feel better, but what about, how do you combat that, and how are you also going to talk to people about COVID? Because I do a lot of online activism, so my tagline is constantly "Go vegan to prevent future pandemics." And I had somebody yesterday comment, I'd rather have another pandemic, and so I can eat my bacon. And that's pretty much 90% of people, right? They want their bacon. They don't even.
I don't know. That's 90%. Let's have some hope for the human race.
How are we going to make this connection? Because they're not connecting it. They keep saying they're going to get a vaccine, but why can't they just go plant-based? What's the answer, Brittany?
Well, science is definitely on our side. I think sometimes it just takes time for people to process that information. So when we present them with clear cut, science that shows what's happening and shows why it's happening, I think that the evidence is irrefutable. Like before I went vegan, I kind of took that journey where I started eating organic grass-fed flesh for a year. Until I read an article where a mathematician did the math on the square footage of the United States and how much space people think, people would agree is good or, would allow these animals to be happy and live their lives normally and, theoretically only have one bad day where they're killed. And the math doesn't add up. You would literally have to level the entire country in order to raise animals for slaughter at the amount that we eat them to be able to meet the demand, which doesn't make sense. You literally couldn't level the entire country to start raising animals.
I think that people love fantasies and they all have this fantasy. I mean, people have said it to my face. I research where I get my meat and my meat is humanely raised. A, there's no humane way to kill an animal who doesn't want to die. And B, it's just like the advertisements of happy cows running around in grass is a lie. The reality doesn't comport with their fantasy. It's simply a fantasy of how they wish these animals might have been raised. But anytime you do an investigation into any kind of farming, the factory farming, the slaughterhouse process, it's inherently violent and abusive to the animals.
Yeah.
People don't go into these, when I went to college, I didn't say I was going to get my degree in farming animals people don't want to work in a slaughterhouse. They just do because they get paid a lot of money and maybe the only job they can get. And
they don't get paid a lot of money. They're exploited. They're amongst the poorest.
Well, they have
they're amongst the poorest people. I work with Boycott Meat, which is an organization based out of Iowa that is speaking up for the slaughterhouse workers who are dying of COVID right now, who are being hospitalized. This is one slaughterhouse worker whose photo we have. The slaughterhouses are hotbeds of coronavirus. More than 200 slaughterhouse workers have died, at least, not counting those who've been infected in their communities. And so they are also being exploited. And
We need advocates.
That's why we do boycott meat in solidarity with the labor unions. And here's who we're working with. These are people who are speaking up for the meatpacking slaughterhouse workers. And so they are also being exploited. But Brittany, continue on.
Well, I think, we're not going to, there are always going to be trolls online. I think sometimes our perspective of how people really feel is skewed because online people tend to get very defensive and it's a lot of fighting online. Whereas when we actually have conversations and show what's happening, I think that's how, we can change hearts and minds. And a lot of times, I also started, when I talk to people, I stopped trying to defend why people should go vegan, and I started asking people, like, why they're asking me all the questions they're asking. Like, well, what about, shellfish? What about, clams? What about, this? And I'm like, well, why? Tell me why you have to do it. And a lot of times, there was no reason. It's all just built into our brains where we haven't actually examined what we've been taught from childhood. So I think, there's so many different ways to do it. I personally, I like sharing the individual stories of animals because, when you have, when one person is killed, it's a tragedy. When a million people are killed, it's a statistic. So when we share individual stories, we share stories from sanctuaries, people really can see like the difference and the juxtaposition of what they're supporting. And ultimately we really need to go hard on our political system because right now, the dairy industry is taking major hits every year. But last year, I think it was a record amount of money that the government paid out to the dairy industry, basically to bail them out. So regardless of us boycotting, our tax dollars are still being used to prop up these dying industries.
Tell us what Rose's Law is, because you're wearing the T-shirt Rose's Law, and I know that a lot of the folks who've been demonstrating are wearing Rose's Law or holding Rose's Law signs.
Yeah, Rose's Law is named after a hen named Rose who was rescued 2 years ago in Sonoma County. And she was the only hen who was rescued. Every other hen was put to death. And so in her name, we are calling for an animal bill of rights. I think it's actually written on the back of my shirt.
Oh, wow. Yeah, here we go. If you just hold steady, I think I can read it. Let me put on my glasses. Animal Bill of Rights, right to rescue from distress and exploitation, right to protection, home, habitat, or ecosystem, right to have interest represented in court and protected by law, right not to be exploited, and the last one got lost in the folds. Yes.
But yeah, it's basically simple Bill of Rights. When I first went vegan, or before even then, when you hear animal rights, a lot of people don't know what to think because, right now, basically only humans have rights. And so, we have the right to vote, and you wouldn't think that animals have a right to vote on human laws. But we have to realize that, we're only making laws because we're the only ones who are doing it. But the planet does not belong to us. The planet belongs to every single organism who's alive that lives here. So we need to respect these animals with just the simplest of respect. You don't have to love animals to respect them, to respect their autonomy, to respect their right not to be exploited. Exploitation, I think, really, we just need to end that practice entirely of anyone. You know, we constantly are hearing, you know, what's happening with how our electronics are produced, with how our clothing is produced. And also with, you know, how the meat that gets sold in stores is produced. Exploitation never leads to anything good. All it leads to is lining the pockets of billionaires. So fighting any form of exploitation is key to really bringing us into the future where everyone has, you know, an equitable sense of a place on this planet, and they're able to live without fear of being used, having their bodies used, their lives used, their families used. I mean, none of this really makes sense when you bring it all down to it. It's all been indoctrinated into us. So we have to really pull back and examine what we've been taught, and we need to call for basically the entire planet to start doing that, every civilization, because I mean, when you go to, like, when you think about dairy, I grew up, you know, I think like most people, really thinking that cows produced milk just naturally and that we were doing them a favor by milking them. And I didn't examine that thought until like my early 20s. And then when I thought about it, and I'm like, they gestate their babies for 9 months, just like human women do. We don't just spontaneously produce milk. Why on earth would cows do that? I mean, that's like common sense, but it's common sense that we've been taught to ignore.
You are so right. Most people are not aware that cows have to be pregnant to produce milk. And that then where do the babies go? Here is a dead pile where cows and calves are tossed. The males they have no use for in the dairy industry. So they either put them in veal crates, or they shoot them, or they leave them on dead piles to die. The females go into these little hutches where they're left alone and fed cheap replacement milk so that humans can steal the breast milk of their mother and drink it. We're not cows. It's filled with growth hormones designed to grow the person who's consuming it, the individuals consuming it, to hundreds of pounds. We wonder why we have an obesity crisis. People, honestly, I was shocked when people have expressed to me, what? The cows have to be pregnant? Yes, they have to be pregnant. And for us to drink the cow's milk, the baby has to be removed, ripped away from his or her mother, because nature designed the milk for that baby, not for us. We are the only species that drinks the breast milk of another species, which is such a shocking, basically gross, disgusting thing when you think about it.
It really is, especially when you look at Americans and our aversion to children drinking their mother's breast milk past like 1 year old. You know, if you see a toddler drinking, you know, breast milk, people, you know, flip out. They think it's disgusting. And yet we're, you know, drinking the milk of another species our entire lives, which makes no sense if you find breast milk disgusting, but the milk of a different animal is not disgusting. But it's only basically cows. You know, like I've seen videos where people offer people dog milk, and people, you know, think that's disgusting. Cat milk, people think it's gross. It's weird that we've programmed ourselves that like cows and goats are fine to be used for their milk. But yeah, that's the other thing, is that like when you look at other industries, our government regulates their marketing. I mean, and when you look at the animal agriculture industry, there is very little oversight into how they market their stuff. They have, you know, happy cows. There's a brand literally called Fairlife. You know, like that's not very fair if you're utilizing, you know, if you're exploiting animals.
Well, the Fairlife brand was the subject of a huge undercover investigation, an expose that made national headlines across the country. Some of the worst cruelty was discovered behind the scenes of their operation, where they would give tours showing how nice they were to the animals while the abuse was happening behind closed doors. Even major newspapers wrote editorials condemning it and describing their name as tragically ironic, Fairlife, primarily because of the hypocrisy, because they were touting themselves as so humane, while the footage that was revealed tremendous cruelty. So I know we were very involved in doing numerous stories about that issue and that scandal, really. I think you would have to call it a scandal. But what's the big picture solution? I know that plant-based milks are skyrocketing, Brittany. They're growing very rapidly, much more rapidly than dairy milks. They're the leading success story, you might say, of the plant-based supermarket space. But then you have the Beyond Meats and the Impossible Burgers and the Gardeins and the Tofurkeys and all of these products, which are growing 5 times faster than overall supermarket growth. So do you see hope in that?
I definitely do. And it's clear that people, especially like younger people, millennials, are really examining a lot of things that we were taught that generation after generation we're spreading this information, and millennials are really taking a look at that. And I mean, not just millennials, people are also realizing that their health would be better if they stopped eating animal products. So there's a lot of hope in seeing what's happening in our grocery stores, seeing the rise in all of these plant-based options. And I think what we really need to do is really target like what the animal ag industries are able to tell the public, and forcing them to tell us the truth. Because and people, like individual people, when you talk to them, people who claim that they do research and they make sure that all of their products that they buy, all these animal products, are really good and super nice to the animals. Ask them to like go down there. Like if they don't have anything to hide, then why can't we go see what's happening? You can drive an hour away from like east of Los Angeles, and you're in huge dairy country, and you can just drive by farm after farm after farm, and you can see the baby cows being kept in hutches just from the road. You can hear them crying out for their mothers. When I was in Iowa earlier this year, trying to get a ventilation shutdown to end, which we were able to successfully do for at least one company in Iowa, just driving around back roads, you could just see dead pile after dead pile after dead pile of these baby pigs who didn't make it from these like grueling, cruel conditions. So the truth is out there. We just have to look for it. We need to ask for it, because if we don't, then we're going to continue to be lied to. And that's also where the Animal Bill of Rights comes in, because until we enact, sweeping legislation that gives these animals protections and doesn't treat them like objects, then these companies are going to continue to do whatever they can to lie to us, to get us to keep buying their products. And I see some companies who are taking on plant-based brands when they typically, they're typically like they're historically that their products are animal products. And I see that there's some hope in that, because I think they see where the future is headed, and they want to get a financial stake in it, so that when things change, or as things change, they won't be left in the dust. And that's really what capitalism is about. Not that we all should necessarily agree with capitalism, but the people are demanding change.
I don't even think we have capitalism right now. What we have is corporate socialism. The dairy industry, there's good argument to be made, it wouldn't even be here if it weren't for the government subsidies. That's us taxpayers, our hard-earned dollars going into food, cheese caves, forcing school children, prisoners, and people in institutions and nursing homes to drink milk. What are some of the questions that folks are asking, Sarah, on the comment section?
A lot of people are, well, somebody said that they had seen some cows out, but a lot of people said that they're looking at the advertisements and that from the pictures is why they're buying the product. So they said that it shows on the side of the package, and that's just what they're supposed to believe, right? I mean, it's all about marketing, because if they actually showed the outside of the package what it really was, probably they wouldn't buy it. What do you think? I mean, they're talking about over here like humane meat. I mean, whether there's pictures of animals grazing on grass on the package, but you know,
That's not reality. Yeah.
right. And then why are animals ingredients? And then just in the meat section, it always says fresh. I always want to just, why do they have that sign that says fresh meat? I mean, how is something been dead for I don't know how long fresh? How's that possible?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. It's so weird, but it's again like these half truths or lies that we've been fed from childhood.
Laura
yeah,
it says, my acne went away when I gave up dairy. Dairy is not for humans. There's a good argument to be made in a lot of research that most human beings, if not all, are allergic to dairy. Things like acne, dandruff, sinus conditions. Many of those are connected to people drinking the breast milk of cows, and then when they stop, it goes away. In fact, there's twins who wrote a book about how they had suffered severe acne, and then they went on a whole food plant-based diet and their acne disappeared. So the trouble with that is you can't sell an acne cream to those people because they've stopped it without having to buy a pharmaceutical. So when we talk about the meat dairy industry, I think we also need to talk about the pharmaceutical industry, because a huge percentage of the pills that people take, they wouldn't need to take, whether it's erectile dysfunction pills, cholesterol pills, acne medication, the list goes on and on. A lot of that would be prevented or reversed with a plant-based diet. So when you talk about the industries that are really relying on the killing of animals, it really goes far beyond just the meat and dairy industry. I mean, by extension, obviously the fast food industry, a huge segment of the restaurant industry, and the pharmaceutical industry, and the healthcare industry. As we found in the brilliant film, What the Health, when it was documented that the publicist from a hospital that is known for doing stent operations said, I can't talk to you. This is our business. So the healthcare industry is also part of the puzzle. And a lot of it really is not capitalism at all. It is the U.S. government promoting this. They actually spend money promoting meat and dairy. And we know famously that the U.S. government was involved in trying to put, now it's called Eat Just, but the Just Mayo out of business. The emails showed they claimed they were joking when they said somebody should put a hit out on, I should have some people visit Josh Tetrick, the founder, which was a threat, sort of an organized crime style threat against the founder of vegan mayonnaise. So it's really these entrenched institutions collectively. And I agree with you, Brittany, that the fact that some of the biggest meat companies in the world, like JBS, which is a Brazilian-owned company, is now producing a vegan line of meats that was just certified vegan. And in fact, one of our contributors is the owner of the vegan certification company, the world's leading vegan certification company. She's a lawyer. She happens to be vegan from birth. She said she couldn't even taste it because it was so meat-like that she actually couldn't even do the test, because that's how meat-like it is. So if we have a society where the meat producers have now made a product that tastes exactly like the animal product, let's hope it's only a matter of time before the shift occurs. Final thoughts.
Well, I just wanted to say that I think when you talk a lot about on your show about addiction, because I think most of the reason why people continue to eat meat, dairy, and eggs is because they're addicted and they need that 28-day detox, 28 to 30 day detox. And I find that very helpful. And I do talk about addiction with people that, some people can't really talk to, they don't relate to that, but people that do relate to that, I believe that it's extremely addictive. And we all know that dairy has addictive substance in it that's why the babies need it. The baby cows need it. And when they don't get it, it's really sad. And we get addicted to that. It was difficult for me to get off cheese, because I was addicted to that, whatever that is, that flavor, that
it's a morphine-like substance
it's like a
put in the breast milk of cows to encourage the calves to consume it. Dr. Neil Barnard, the founder and president of Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, wrote an entire book called The Cheese Trap that talks all about that. So very good point, Sarah Segal. Final thoughts, Brittany?
Yeah, I think to make these changes, you can start with your diet. You can start making stuff like the thing that I made, the spring rolls I made today. But also really get informed. Follow the accounts like DXE, Jane Unchained, and do your research, and then call your legislators. Sign petitions, call your legislators, make your voice heard, because these companies and these industries are going to keep getting their way until we hold them accountable, until enough of us stand up and unafraid of them, and we tell them that we're not going to stand for this anymore. So we need to, tell our friends and family. We need to live by example. We need to, share this information, find this information, do the research, because that's how we're going to change. Because stuff like addiction to animal products, no one was taught that as a child. And I mean, ultimately, I think we are moving in the right direction. Now when I see, I've seen products where it's beef mixed with plants, and that's touted as a good thing. It's got 50%, vegetables in these burgers. Versus, 20 years ago when people saw that, they would be like, oh, that's filler, that's gross. I want just 100% dead animal. And now people are celebrating the fact that we're mixing dead animal parts with plant-based ingredients. So I think that, we're almost at that boiling point. We just need to not let up. We need to get involved and push our involvement to whatever we can, whether it's social media, or reaching out to your local news correspondents, reaching out to your legislators, talking to your grocery stores, talking to the managers. And that's how we're going to start pushing this, is by pushing ourselves to start doing more.
We have a request if you'll show the spring rolls, and somebody wants to take a snapshot. Thank you.
Oh.
Well, you ate it.
Oh,
from the top.
I forgot that you only made
Well,
one.
you're going to have to make one more.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, we've got the time. I can do it.
Yeah. Okay. I know you're probably running out of time. You're a very busy lady, but you're just going to have to make one more. We're all going to have to eat vicariously.
Okay, so we've got our rice paper, and then we're going to put down our cilantro. And the other cool thing is if you don't have or if you can't find these rice paper rolls, you can make this into a salad and add some lettuce, add some.
Or you could do a lettuce wrap.
Yeah, you can do a lettuce wrap. I actually love a good spring roll salad with some cabbage and some lettuce. Very good. So you can do with what you have. If you don't have a spring roll wrapper and you can't find one, you can make a lettuce wrap. You can make it into a salad.
Where did you get the noodles?
Okay. I got them from Costco, but you can also get them from in most Asian markets. Sprouts. Oh, here we go.
That's beautiful.
That's gorgeous. Well done.
Snapshots. We got some.
There it is. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. Thank you, ladies. You guys are amazing. Great conversation. We really covered a lot of ground. Who knew when we started making spring rolls? Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time on Lunch Break
Girl
Live.
Friday.
Every day, 12:30. Bye-bye.